It's the big scandal of the week, of course, has been a number of Conservatives and Rishi Sunak's close protection officer being under investigation from the Gambling Commission for placing bets just before Rishi Sunak announced the date of the general election. He did that on May the 22nd, and I have an update for you which has come through, which says that many more people. So this morning we heard that the Chief Data Officer is now under investigation, Chief Data Officer for the Conservatives. We heard Laura Sanders, who's the candidate in Bristol North West, and her husband, Tony Lee, who's the party's Director of Campaigns. They're both being investigated. And of course, last week we heard that Craig Williams, who was the Tory MP, is now the candidate for Montgomeryshire. He has admitted that he placed a bet, a flutter as he called it. He is being investigated as well. But now the breaking news is that many more people are being investigated over these betting claims in relation. The watchdog has widened its inquiries to investigate whether people with inside knowledge may have asked a third party to place a bet for them, and also that they have written to leading bookmakers asking for details of bets of £20 or more on the election date within days of Rishi Sunak announcing it on May the 22nd. So the Gambling Commission is certainly taking it very seriously. And on that subject, I want to speak now to Professor Matthew Goodwin, who's a Professor of Politics and International Relations and the author of a great book, Values, Voice and Virtue. Welcome to the show, Matt. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us. This Gamblingate, as some are calling it, or Betgate, is pretty similar to Partygate. At least that's what Michael Gove has said this morning. Would you agree with that, Matt?
I think he's right, actually. I think this is, look, I mean, we don't know how far this is going to go, but it's already beginning to look like a systemic crisis in the sense that many people appear to have been involved with this. And the reason it's so damaging for the Conservative Party brand, which is already obviously deeply damaged in the public mood. They're on historic lows in the polling. I'm a pollster. We've never seen the Conservative vote this low. Rishi Sunak's leadership ratings are very low. This is a party that is really on life support. The reason this scandal is so damaging is because with only 10 days to go until the election, it is reaffirming in the minds of voters that ultimately the Conservative or the Tory party are always prioritising themselves over the interests of the wider country. And that comes through loudly in the polling. People don't trust the Conservative Party. They think the party's in it for themselves, not in it for the country. And that's why this scandal, I think, Carol, is so damaging.
It's interesting that you say that because, this relationship between Partygate and Gamblingate has been discussed. In this hour we're talking about, and two, people who have said that they either aren't going to vote or they haven't decided who to vote for. But this subject of Partygate keeps coming up. I've got hundreds of messages here where it's mentioned Partygate. It's about disillusionment with politics. I mean, it's hugely damaging, isn't it, for politics as a whole, Matt?
I think it is, yeah. And I think, this is obviously, on the one hand, this is a party that's coming, the polls suggest coming to the end of a 14-year period in office after not just Partygate, but we've had, the Liz Truss premiership. We've had a string of scandals around, misconduct in Parliament. We've had the Chris Pincher scandal, among others. Yeah. We've had lobbying scandals, and now we've got political betting scandals as well. And, there's a question here as to, is this scandal actually going to make a difference when it comes to the election outcome, given that voters are already so exasperated with the Conservative Party? I think it will certainly reinforce the negatives. I'm not entirely sure in and of itself it's going to make a difference. But, again, it's bringing what has been, in my view at least, I think the polling shows this quite clearly, a very negative election campaign, a very unconvincing election campaign by the Conservatives. Most voters out there openly say Conservatives have had the worst of the two big party campaigns. And this is really quite a sorry end to that, because it is showing quite clearly that some people at the heart of British politics were effectively insider trading. They had advanced knowledge the election was coming, and they looked to make personal financial gain out of that insider knowledge with political gambling companies. Now, that is it's pretty devastating for the ruling Conservative Party that is also supposed to be the party that's upholding standards and so on in public life, or at least would like to think it is. So I think it's just another low day for Rishi Sunak's premiership and for the party.
And also, Matt, this is my opinion, that Partygate and this cut through in a way where, they might say, oh, well, billions of pounds were given to, or billions of pounds going there, because it's very difficult to imagine billions of pounds and what that represents. But we all know what it was like if somebody broke the rules, if somebody was having a party during lockdowns. We can relate to that. We can relate to somebody placing a bet. It's more difficult for us to relate to a hedge fund, perhaps, speculating on something. And I think, and would you agree, that this is why these do cut through to everybody, because we can understand how it's done, and it's something that we have all been to a party. I'm not talking about in lockdown. We have all placed, most people have had a little flutter on the Grand National or something, and that's the inherent difference between the other stories. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think to some extent that, I'd agree with that. I mean, I think both Partygate and this story, we could sort of instinctively relate to, people, breaking the rules, having a party, putting a bet down at the local betting shop. I think these are things that people can not necessarily relate to because they've done it, but it does feel like it's at least within the realm of the real world. I think for the Conservatives at the moment, what they have consistently done is gone up against the British sense of fair play, and that is really ingrained in our national culture. Yeah. That sense of, we don't mind what you say and what you do as long as, you get in the queue and you subscribe to that sense of fair play. Yeah. And the Conservatives have too often found themselves on the wrong side of that cultural norm. And that's why, again, I mean, I'm a pollster, and the numbers we're seeing nationally now, 19%, 20%, the old joke among pollsters was that the Conservative vote share wouldn't go below 30%, because that's when you get to pensioners who are pro-Conservative and they're in care homes and they don't really know the difference as to what's going out there in the country. But here we are on 18, 19%. And I think the Conservatives, we don't really know how low the floor is to this vote, but we know voters aren't going to come back or are not planning on coming back anytime soon. And this scandal is going to directly feed into that. I mean, it's a huge gift, this, for Keir Starmer. Yeah, it's a huge gift for the Labour Party. And to be honest, it's a huge gift for Nigel Farage, because, if you're campaigning on the anti-establishment ticket and you're saying, look, everybody in Westminster is kind of, corrupt or in it for themselves or whatever, it's going to help everybody except Rishi Sunak and the Tories at the end of the day. And that's a real problem here for the Conservatives.